about this high. You get right next to it. There, it's over everybody's head now. That's okay. I agree with you guys.
Nice to see you, Dave.
Hello, good to see you. Welcome back. Hello, Commissioners, and I appreciate the opportunity. My name is Dr. David McCaleb. I live in St. Petersburg. I know that all my friends gathered here will conduct themselves with a decorum appropriate so that the press won't find ammunition to use against them and distract from their important message. And what is their important message? Their important message is that we do not need another penny tax in our county for any reason, but especially to support a light rail project that will have major cost overruns. This tax swap that's being proposed would abolish property taxes of about 30-something million and create sales tax revenue of about 120 million to the PSTA. The PSTA has a history of wasting money, and I analyze that on my blog. You can read about it. But we don't need light rail. We don't need rapid bus. What we do need is good, solid bus transportation from an agency that manages its budget well. There are many cost overruns that come with these things, and we've seen it fail in Charlotte. I've heard it extolled that Charlotte is a success. Well, only if you revise your projection numbers was Charlotte a success for their light rail. Their rider numbers were down, their cost overruns were great. There is talk of Sunrail in Orlando being a budding success, and yet now the government has to scramble to get subsidies from major employers to get people to ride the train, and there's already cost overruns there. I would say if you're going to have a referendum, the only sort of sales tax you would propose would be budget neutral. And I don't know if you can do a fractional sales tax or not, but if you could, raising an equivalent amount of about 30-something million in sales tax might be a reasonable way to go to give us some needed property tax relief, but nothing more. There's immense politics on this. Where's my timer? There we are. We'll see special interest roll out campaigns, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars of special interest campaigns that citizens like these cannot compete against. And why would these crony capitalists come up with this money for these campaigns? Because they're going to benefit with hundreds of millions of dollars of government spending that will be taken out of the economy. I've heard people talk about helping the poor. For those of you who talk about fluoride, who talk about we have to help the poor with fluoridation, let me ask you, does it help the poor to put another penny tax on them for sales? No, it does not. Does it help the poor to take 120 million out of the economy so that jobs are driven out of Pinellas when we have the highest sales tax in the region? Does it help the poor when we tell them that, well, you can't have development in Midtown because we need to put you on a train to bring you to jobs that the planners are going to design in central Pinellas County because we don't think you're smart enough to figure out where to work. We know people don't want to go to your black neighborhood in Midtown and develop a plant or a job. That is an insult, and I've heard it said many times by many advocates. So if you want to help the poor, build better roads, decrease the cost of your government, help increase jobs, no crony capitalism, and do not allow a referendum that quadruples the revenue to PSTA for rail. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
My name is Hamilton Hanson. I am from Weeki-Wachee, but I'm also a St. Petersburg taxpayer. Does this work if
Yes.
I do this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is that right side up?
Yep.
There, that is called the U.S. Constitution. That's a very important book. Now, I am absolutely against a rail, and when that young man has $30 billion that he can write a check for, he can have all the rail he wants. But right now, I'm against the rail. And let me explain to you that there's something else involved in what we're talking about. Mr. Brickfield, you made some comments the other night that we had a good time with. And what you said was essentially, you want to know what the people think. And I think that's a wonderful idea. Now, I want to explain to you that based on this nice little book that I have given to all of you, we do not live in a democracy. A democracy is Athens. All the people get on the hillside and they raise their hand and they decide the rules from one day to the next. We don't live in a democracy. This book says we are guaranteed a Republican form of government. A Republican form of government means that we have hired you folks, all 5 of you, 5, 6, 7, 10, 12, all of you to represent us and make decisions on our behalf, not on the behalf of special interests. So it is your job to make these decisions and decide that we are not going to have a rail because you don't want to mortgage that young man's future. I don't care if he can write a $30 billion check, you do not want to mortgage his future. You folks have all the information. You're paid to examine all the reports and all the data. You're supposed to have all the information to be able to make this decision, because we the people have no idea what a transit system will be like, will cost, how it will run. You can't ever imagine 1 million people in this county understanding that process and this project well enough to be able to make a decision. Now, I want the people involved, no question about it. But folks, we live in a Republican form of government. We've asked you, we're paying you, we have hired you to do this, to make this decision for us. And therefore, I would suggest, rather than abandoning the mantle of public trust that we have placed in you, that you actually just say no to the legislature for having given you the authority to proceed with this project. Thank you.
My name is Jackie Madiak, and I've been a resident of Pinellas County for the past 22 years. I'm here to state my opposition to placing a 1% transit referendum tax swap on any upcoming ballots. If I recall correctly, it was stated it would cost close to $4 million to put the referendum on a special ballot. The voters of Pinellas County have said no to a high-speed rail several times already. We do not want our tax dollars going for a light rail either. This is just another way to force the issue on us taxpayers with another burdensome tax we don't want to pay for. As a resident of the East Lake area, we have paid for many years premium tax dollars for Little County services in return. I'll give you 2 examples. One is the East Lake Library and the Upper Pinellas Sports Complex. I've raised 3 children here in Pinellas County. Both my husband and I have spent endless hours volunteering when our sports complex seemed nothing more than an open field. It took many, many years for tax dollars to start flowing into our sports complex. When we visited competitive teams, such as Countryside, Oldsmar, there were beautiful sports complexes. Something seemed a little out of balance. Another example is the East Lake Community Library, where taxes that are paid into the county's library cooperative system are approximately 5 times the amount distributed back to our library. And even though the county has funded an annual stipend to offset this inequity, we East Lake residents pay a disproportionately high tax levy. Now we are being asked to support a rail system that will be in South County and will be of little or no use to those who live in North County. The transit system should stay within their budgets, just like the rest of us have to live within our budgets. I, like so many Americans, am sick and tired of the runaway spending of county government, state government, and federal government. Learn to live within a budget. Our economy has not rebounded like the Obama administration wants us to believe. Unemployment is still high, the housing values continue to fall, and prices for almost everything seem to go up daily. So this is not the time to raise taxes for something we the people don't want and don't need. In closing, no for a tax for the tracks. Pinellas County does not need its own cylinder. Thank you for your time and your service.
Thank you.
I've been a citizen of Pinellas County for 11 years. I've had the pleasure to come from Bulgaria and observe how this great country has done for everybody. I just want to say that it's been brought to my attention, this light rail system. It's apparently over 10 years will accumulate approximately $10 billion, which, let's say for one person, that would be about $13,000 with that 10-year span. I don't like to spend my taxpayers' money and into fixing somebody else's problem. You know, I don't ride the bus. I do know people who ride the bus, and I feel that if the bus system could be better and people could learn to, you know, like the lady before me said, if they could learn to pretty much live within their means, within their budget and everything else, that would definitely benefit everybody. And I just want to say that, you know, vote no for light rail, please.
Thank you.
I am in opposition to light rail. As a number of the other folks are, I won't go over the facts again, but I just want to bring 2 points to your attention. From the brain, from the mind, we know what the costs are going to be, know their expense, and taking those dollars out of the economy for people who use public transportation only adds an additional cost to them. Them not being able to get a job because our economy is weak, because tax dollars are going to a rail system that only brings help to maybe 3% of the population is wrong. We know that we want to help people who need the public transportation. We have a bus system, it needs to be run more efficiently. However, to do a trade for 3% of the population when you're, according to Florida statutes 125.01, powers and duties of the commission, you're here to benefit, your decision benefits for the property or residence when substantial benefit accrues to property or residence within the municipality. In other words, consistent with the public interest. 3% of the population does not have a majority. As the gentleman said, we are a republic. You are elected to represent us. And in deference to what we talked about the other day, saying I want to hear what the public has to say is dodging the issue, in my opinion. You have the responsibility, the fiduciary responsibility, to look after our taxpayer money according to the Florida statutes. And by putting a referendum on to increase taxes is wrong for this purpose. And last, I want you to also think about from the heart. We all want to help people who need help. There will always be people who need help. Do you want to be remembered by your grandchildren? You were the guys that forced this taxes on it. And all these businesses went away. And now we're living in this less than desirable place because you increase the taxes for a rail system that does not supply most of the residents with a benefit. I just want you to think about that. Do you want to be remembered for that?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak, and especially since you're giving me the opportunity to speak, I want to try to be as short as I can. I had quite a bit planned here, but I want to just lay it right down to the bottom line. So first, I'm opposed to light rail. Specifically, I'm opposed to putting a referendum on the ballot for light rail, going through all that. And the bottom line part of that I object to is what has basically been a top-down, I'm going to say marketing, I know some of you don't agree with that, campaign for quite a while, probably the last 2 years for that, now getting ready to be accelerated into a formal marketing / branding campaign. And my request is that, bottom line is my request is to stop, okay? It's not wanted. No one I know wants rail. I guess there's some people that want it, but no one I know wants it. It's a zero bang for the buck initiative. There's nowhere I know where it's been valuable, possibly China. Most has been a tax drain, unlimited forever. The ridership here doesn't support it. I can list quite a few things, but that's really the bottom line that I'm requesting for you to stop the marketing for it. Fix the buses. There's a lot that can be done with buses. They can be smaller, quicker, and there's an enormous amount that can be done with buses, and that's really where the main demand with, and they're variable. I mean, you could put a bus to a lot of different places. A rail is fixed forever, and it's an enormous tax drain for an enormously long piece of time with a zero bang for the buck. I'm from New Jersey, which is very dense. Light rail there is 85% subsidized. I think Governor Christie just knocked it down to 70, and that's in a dense as you can get population. We don't have that, and it's certainly not a valuable thing here, okay? So the bottom line is, and I really appreciate you giving me the chance to speak, is to stop the top-down push which has gone on, okay, and stop the marketing for light rail. That's pretty much the bottom line, and to not go through what it's going to take to put this on a referendum, probably in an off year from what I've heard, and basically be an enormous marketing campaign that is going to be very difficult to even contradict or even get the other side out amidst the juggernaut of the marketing campaign that's looking like it's being developed. And that's with the information that's coming on the local preferred analysis and the new marketing that's looking, that I'm not sure if it's confirmed or not, but it's looking to be an enormous marketing campaign for it. So I think I made it clear. Again, I appreciate you letting me speak. Please stop the marketing campaign, and please don't put it on a referendum for light rail. Thank you.
This proposed tax swap is actually the classic bait and switch. You know, they propose it as a tax swap, and indeed it's a tax increase. I did an in-depth, comprehensive study of my tax bill, ad valorem tax bill last year. It took me about 30 seconds. I just looked on my tax bill and saw what PSTA levied against my property, $41. Well, that would mean with a 1% tax increase, I would have to spend only $4,100 before it became a tax increase to me with that 1%. And it is, as one speaker pointed out, it is a regressive tax. The higher your tax bill that will go away, the more relief you get. So it is regressive as with respect to the income levels of the people's property that you're levying this tax on. The government officials are fond of putting their name on a brass or a bronze plaque when all these projects are initiated. So I suggest that we tag this one with the Ed Hooper, Jack Latvala 14% sales tax increase. I think what we need to do is tie these millstones around the necks of these politicians that promote these things, so that when they do go belly up, we have somebody to hold accountable. It's great when you have the golden shovel and the big ceremonial pair of large scissors to cut the ribbon, but 20 years down the road, when this project is upside down, there's going to be nobody to blame. All you folks are going to be gone, and we're going to have a new set of leaders. So I think we should identify these leaders that are proposing this. A real tax swap would be to swap this for the penny for Pinellas, the remaining years of penny for Pinellas. Now I know that is frightening to you folks because you're really counting on that money to be spent. But indeed, that would be a 1-cent sales tax swap. And as far as penny 4, I think we can forget about penny 4. I disagree with the previous speaker that said there won't be any pushback when you folks start to market this. Oh yes, there will be. There was no Tea Party back when you passed penny 3 with 9.8% of the electorate. And with all the arm twisting and chicanery and marketing that you did for penny 3, it only passed with 9.8% of the electorate. So as far as not getting blowback on light rail, don't worry. There's going to be plenty of opposition and plenty of information that's going to get out there to the folks that need this information. I know what you're trying to create a transportation bubble. We've had a .com bubble. We've had an internet bubble. We've had a real estate bubble. And I understand your motivation and your sincerity in trying to create a transportation bubble. But like all other bubbles, one day it's going to pop, and the taxpayer is going to be left holding the bag. So I think that, and as far as, I'm not going to get into a lot of the details here because it's premature. I'll be addressing PSTA when some of these issues come forward, but your task is to put this referendum on the ballot or not. And if you choose to decide to put it on the ballot, there's going to be a lot of blowback to it. One comment, the gentleman suggested the interstate as a welfare or some type of program like that. President Eisenhower built the interstate when he saw what the Autobahn did for Hitler in his defense of his country. So it was never meant for weekend day trippers. So that's another point.
I am not for the light rail system. The way that I was approached was just kind of enlightening because I haven't really been too involved, but this was my first task, and whenever I heard about it, I'm a college student. I don't make a lot of money anyways, and for me to have to come up with more money to support a system that we already have, and if you want to go green friendly and try to really help everybody, just do what you can with the system that you're given, improve it with what you can. You've already came up with a good idea, so try to stick with that good idea and bring light to more of our eyes and like how to just use our resources wisely. And I just don't really plan on buying a home soon for somebody to give me a percentage and raise taxes for me to have to pay for something that I don't own yet in 10 years, that people who aren't 18 now don't even have a say-so in whether they're going to want to have to pay these taxes. So if we're going to have some kind of agreement in protecting each other and wanting to trust in each other, I just think it's a better idea to vote no for the tax for tracks and to start somewhere and give a voice to people who aren't afraid to tell people, like, well, I mean, I know I don't have a voice now because I'm not of age, but, you know, I do trust in people who are able to talk to you and come here And whenever I go to work for money, I know that it's going to be good intentions everywhere and that people aren't just going to try and turn my eyes to something when it's not the most important issue. So that's why I say no voting for tax for tracks, and use, whatever energy we do have in a more efficient manner towards something that wouldn't cause such an outbreak of an issue because you want to raise taxes for this. I just don't agree to no tax for tracks. That's all.
Thank you for letting me speak. Over the past 4 decades, American cities have spent close to $100 billion constructing rail and transit systems, and many billions more operating those systems. The agencies that spend taxpayers' dollars building these lines almost invariably call them successful, even when they go an average of 40% over budget, in many cases carry an insignificant number of riders. The people who rarely or never ride these lines but still have to pay for them should ask, how do you define success? The policy analysis uses the latest government data on scores of rail transit systems to evaluate the system's value and usefulness to the public using 6 different tests. Profitability. Do rail fares cover operating costs? Ridership. Do new rail lines significantly increase transit ridership? Cost effectiveness. Are new rail lines less expensive to operate than buses, providing service at similar frequencies and speed? Economic development. Do new rail lines truly stimulate economic development? The transportation network test. Do rail lines add to or place the stresses on existing transportation networks? The cable car test. Do rail lines perform as well or better than cable cars, the oldest and most expensive form of mechanized land-based transportation? Who does this benefit? That's another test they should put. I oppose the tax swap and light rail. It is too much of a burden to put on our grandchildren. They're not going to have the same opportunities we have with all these taxes. They really don't understand what it costs when they get their paycheck and half of it is taken out. Well, that's all I have to say, and don't put the burden on my grandchildren, and live within your means and improve the bus system. Thank you.
I'm a St. Pete resident, and we've been living in our house since 1981. My perspective as a small business owner is one of return on investment. Now, the most obvious investment I can make as a small businessman is my personal effort. But when I am required to go out and either borrow money or extend my personal finances in an effort to expand my business, it's for the purpose of getting a return. Now, that return is not always strictly measurable in money. I will grant you that. But it is in part, because without money I can't sustain my business, nor can I sustain my family. So the most important part of running a business and running our county is to have us able to return on the investments that we make. I don't feel that the rail system is an investment which will get us that kind of a return. And when I talk about return on the rail system, I'm not just including dollars and cents. I'm looking at a number of other things that have been measured by other rail systems. Those things such as, has it reduced the congestion on the highways? Have those compartments where we set up our depots for people to embark and disembark created other economic opportunities? Have we improved the environment in terms of gaseous emissions and so forth? And the evidence, which is partially in what you're seeing today and is further documented, is that we are not accomplishing those things in any measurable fashion, which is crucial. There are selected cities that have prospered in one or two of those methods or measurement techniques, but they have not prospered in all of those. And therefore, the return on investment has not been what the folks who invested thought it would be. I encourage each of you to look at the data that's been presented and make sure that in your mind that kind of investment is going to be available and return. I want to point out a couple of items, and this is from the Pinellas County website. History of PSTA, 2010, we had 13.1 million riders in the system, and it cost us roughly $54 million to do that. $27 million of that came from taxes other than the ad valorem and the fares. So it's not a monetary feasible situation, but the point I wanted to really make about it is in the work done for the county by Tyndale and Oliver, they're indicating that they thought the ridership in 2010 would be over 14 million. The point I'm making here is you're using data generated by a company in good faith that is off by 1 million riders 3 years out. So they said in 2010 we would have 14 million, we had 13 million. Their report was done in 2008. So the ridership numbers are skewed right from the beginning. So I suggest that if we expand their numbers out further, they can get further skewed. And I think this is very important because ridership is a very important part of this whole process. Now, I'm a believer in transit, mass transit, and that's for a couple of reasons. The first of which is that my grandson uses mass transit, but you know, if he uses it on a Saturday or Sunday, it takes him roughly twice as long to get to his workplace. The Pinellas County, the state of Florida, #1 economic benefit to us is in tourism. Most of the people who work in tourism are on the beach. They can't get to and from work with the transit system that we have set up. It's not properly functioning. Now, Monday through Friday, perhaps. Saturday and Sunday, no. So if you will follow my reasoning here, we need the tourism. That's our #1 industry. We need to get those people out there. They are not in a position financially to buy cars. So they have to have this transportation available. Light rail doesn't address that. We need to look at our infrastructure as it is currently, put into our existing bus system natural gas, which can be converted fairly easily and relatively inexpensively, and provide transportation to the folks who actually really need it. And I think that as we talk about the citizens, as we talk about the Republican form of government, one of our responsibilities is to take care of those who cannot take care of themselves or who are not as blessed as we are. And the way to do that is not by putting a high-cost rail system to the center of the city where other people have accessibility. The way to make it beneficial to all citizens is to provide services that will allow all citizens to benefit. I benefit by having good services on the beach because I benefit by the tax revenues that are generated by being a high tourism area. So that would be the point I would make there. If we look at the statistics, the cities that have done this and been successful, the success has been that they have lost less than others. New York City has approximately a 77%, I'm going to have to find a number here, approximately a 70% ratio of their fare to their total cost. And this is a reasonably good ratio. Many cities are down in the 20, 10, and 15%. This is a very low number and possibly the kind of number we'd be facing here. If, and I hope to say this never happens, you do recommend this to referendum, and if it gets passed by the citizens, if there's a federal component, there's no way out. Everybody knows that. If the federal government subsidizes us, we can't back out. We are responsible to pay for it, win or lose, for the balance of the life of that particular system. So I think we better all be very careful when we consider that situation. Last thing I want to refer to is the links system. This is the system that I think many of us have patterned our success by. There's a very nice article, some of which is included. It talks about the link system. And it talks about the fact that the link system is, by all accounts, pardon me while I find this. By all accounts, in summary, the link system costs were $521 billion versus projection of 127. So I think we know that the costs are not going to meet the expectations that you folks have initially looked at. I'm going to conclude by saying that I really appreciate this opportunity. I hope there are more citizens who will come in front of this council and give you an opportunity to hear what we really think about this kind of expansion. I personally cannot afford to pay much more tax. I'm sure you're probably in the same boat with me. Thanks very much.